All right, all right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Adams Brothers podcast. We have a good podcast here for you this evening. We have the Broward County property appraiser here with us this evening, Mr. Marty Kiar. He's going to be answering some questions that a lot of you may not know, and he's prepared to answer some of your questions if you put them into the chat. So we'd like to welcome the Broward County property appraiser, Mr. Marty Kiar, to the Adams Brothers podcast.
Which is an elected position.
It's an elected position. Yes, it is. Welcome to the Adams Brothers podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Daryl and Wayne. And I appreciate so much y'all having me on. Our office, and as we'll talk about, can do so much to help the community. But sometimes it's difficult to get the word out to everybody. And when good people like yourself are able to give me an opportunity to talk about what we do, I just appreciate so much you allow me to have that opportunity. Thank you all so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's a pleasure having you here on the show. And we talked a little bit off the camera before before we went live on Facebook. So I want you to tell the audience a little bit about you and how long you've been an elected official here in Broward County.
Thank you so much, Daryl. I have to tell you, I've lived in Broward County my entire life. I actually went to Western High School a long time ago. Played baseball at a school called Palm Beach Atlantic University, and then went to law school in Nova Southeastern. And right about 2006, I was elected to serve in the Florida House of Representatives. I served there till 2012. From 2012 to 2016, I served on the county commission. I got to be the mayor of the county for a year. And then in 2016, I was elected as our property appraiser, reelected in 2020. And I can tell you, out of all the elected jobs I've had, this one I love the most by far, because you get to interact with everybody in the county and you get to help people. And let me just quickly explain that. When I served in the legislature, I loved it. You got to debate big issues, whether it's education or healthcare, and help make the state better. But you were so far away from the people, you didn't really get to meet all the people you were helping. When I was on the county commission, that's a great job. I mean, you get to make the port better and the airport better and try to make Broward County a real powerhouse economically. But you're still so far away from the people, you don't get to meet the people you're helping. Property appraiser is the best job alive, because every single day you're helping people with their property. You help seniors and veterans. It's the type of job that when you go home, you put your head in your pillow, you feel like you did something good that day. And so I just appreciate so much the wonderful 2 million people that live in our awesome county for giving me the opportunity to serve them in this capacity. So thank you for asking that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're happy to have you here to answer some of these questions that we're going to be asking, and I'm sure our audience that's out there listening, watching, I should say, they'll get something and learn something from it. So let me just go on into my first question. Just tell us what exactly do you do down at the property appraiser's office?
That is such a great question. So as you said before, I'm one of our countywide elected officials. And so I'm kind of at the top of our office, and we have about 240 people that work for us. And in our office, there are three main functions that we have. The first function is we determine the value of every piece of property in Broward County for tax purposes, whether it's residential, commercial, tangible personal property, or centrally assessed property, which are railroads. And the reason that's important is because the amount of property taxes people pay is a relationship between the value of the property that we set and the tax rate set by all their local governments, whether it's the county commission, the school board, the city. And so the higher the value of the property, the more taxes people pay. The lower the value of property, the lower amount of taxes they pay. So the most important thing we want to do is just make sure we get it right. And Broward County, as you know, is a huge place. More people live here than 13 states, the District of Columbia, and all U.S. territories except Puerto Rico. It is big. And there are more parcels that we appraise than many states. And so I always tell everybody, in just the next week, every single person in Broward County is going to get a document from me in the mail. It's called your TRIM notice, the Truth and Millage Notice. It's going to show the value of your property for tax purposes, all the tax saving exemptions you're getting. It's going to show the dates and times your local government's going to be discussing their tax rates, and it's going to show the proposed amount of property taxes that they're going to be asked to pay. And so I always tell everybody, please review that document. And if you have any concerns with the value of your property, or you're not getting every exemption you're entitled to, call me, email me by September 18th, come to our office, or we'll come to you so we can make sure your value is correct and you're getting all the exemptions you're entitled to so that your tax bill will be correct. You won't pay too much. The second thing that we do, and this is what I love most about my job, is we give tax saving exemptions to people that qualify. And there are a lot of exemptions under Florida law that people qualify for. The most important one by far is the homestead exemption. If somebody lives here in Broward County and it's their primary residence, which means it's where they're registered to vote. If they don't vote, where their declaration of domicile, where their car is registered to, if this is where they live and they raise their family, they get that very important exemption. And it does two things. The first thing it does, it takes $50,000 of value off the tax so they don't pay tax. I can save them 800, 900, maybe $1,000 a year, but it really protects them going forward because every year after somebody has a homestead exemption, the value of their tax line cannot go up more than a maximum of 3%. And every single person right now knows is what's happened to property values in South Florida. They have skyrocketed because people are paying a lot of money for properties. So if anybody out there has not filed for homestead exemption, you have till September 18th of this year so that when your tax bill comes out, the value of your tax line can only go up 3% and won't skyrocket with a high market value. Once you get that, there are so many other exemptions.
Okay.
There are exemptions for seniors, for veterans, and others. I can go on and on.
There's a slight delay
there is.
on Facebook. So if you hear a little slight delay for all our viewers out there, so I don't know, sometimes we get that, but if you see us kind of looking a little strange here on this end, it's because it's a delay here when you're live streaming to Facebook. So
totally
thank
understand,
you for explaining that. And let's talk a little bit about how the people here in Broward County, I know we were talking about this before we start recording as well, how the people in Broward County could protect their property from scammers or people just trying to steal their property away from them. I know there's a big problem, not only here in Broward County, but in all across Florida that people take advantage of, especially the elderly people. So if you could explain to our viewers how people can protect their property as best as they could.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for asking this question. You know, unfortunately, South Florida is the title fraud capital of the world. It's the capital of the world because you have criminals. That's what they are. And what they do is they walk into the recording divisions of every single county. They file fake deeds on people's properties, and they take those deeds and they extort people for money or mortgage rent or sell the property. They do it all the time. And the reason it's so easy for them is the recording division for every county has a ministerial duty. They have to accept whatever documents filed with them. So you have these criminals, they walk in, they file a fake deed, and they do something nefarious with it. So the first thing we wanted to do was give the people of Broward County the opportunity to fight the fraud before the fraud occurs. So about 2 years ago, we came up with a great program called Owner Alert. It's really a notification program to let people know if a fake deed has been filed on their property. And they can either get an email, they can get a text message, or they can get a hard copy in the mail, or all three. And here's how anybody can sign up. If they go to our website at bcpa.net, they click on Owner Alert, they type in their name, they type in their email address, and they type in their parcel ID number, which you can easily grab from our website. And if we have their email address on file, they're automatically verified. If we don't, they have to upload their Florida driver's license or Florida ID. If they don't have that, then they have to upload a utility bill or something proving ownership. And then if any document, legitimate or not, is filed changing ownership, they'll be notified instantaneously so they can fight the fraud before the fraud occurs. We've had about 200,000 Broward property owners sign up for Owner Alert so far. And my goal is to get everybody to sign up because it's there to protect their most important asset, their home. And when I instituted this 2 years ago, I started getting emails and calls from people basically saying, Marty, I just got an alert on my property that somebody has filed a deed and I didn't do it. And I got more and more and more. And I realized how big of a problem it was. So I wanted to do something a little bit different that no other property appraiser has done. I wanted to work with law enforcement, build criminal cases, and put people in jail who are doing this. And so I contacted the state of Florida and I basically said, this is what I want to do. And they got a little bit of angst because then they go, you know, Marty, you guys appraise property and give exemptions. You're not law enforcement, but we understand it's a big deal and we'd like to give you this opportunity. So they approved funding that the county commission helped fund it for what we call our crimes against property team. And here's who it consists of. It consists of our director. It consists of 4 non-sworn former law enforcement with significant law enforcement experience. And also it consists of 2 BSO detectives because I went to Sheriff Tony, who's my friend, who, by the way, I think is doing a fantastic job for our community. And I said to Sheriff Tony, you know, Sheriff, this is what's happening. And he goes, Marty, I'm going to assign 2 detectives to work solely with you and your office so that you can really help build these criminal cases. I then went to Harold Pryor, who's also a very, very good friend doing a great job. He's our state attorney. I explained to him the situation, and he actually assigned a state attorney to work solely with our office to help prosecute the cases. And so we actually have a team of people. And so far over the past year, we've arrested 17 people. We've convicted a number of people. We have a number of open warrants for people who have done this. And we've been able to stop the fraudulent sale of millions of dollars of properties and have recovered millions of dollars of properties and returned those to the victims. And to give you an idea just how smart these people are, I would love, if it's okay, to be able to talk about a few examples that really show how bad the folks are that do this and how smart they are.
Sure.
And just for everybody out there, what they really need to understand about these people is they are so smart that if they did something legitimate, they'd be very successful. Instead, they make their money by defrauding the public. And they like to pick on our most vulnerable residents because they want to pick on whoever they can best get away with it. So let me just tell you 3 quick stories that show how smart they are. There was a married couple that were arrested and convicted. And here's what they did. They were 2 wives. One of the wives worked for one of our hospital districts. The other wife worked in the real estate industry. The wife that worked in the hospital district would find out when people would pass on. She would then take their confidential personal information and give it to her wife in the real estate industry, who would find out if they had property in Broward County and if they had heirs here. If they had property and no heirs, they'd file fake deeds on the property. They'd mortgage the properties, rent the properties, sell the properties. They profited in the amount of likely millions of dollars. But something I'm very happy about is they were arrested, they were found guilty, and even though they're a married couple, they're spending their time in different prisons. Another example to show how smart they are. There was a man not from Broward County. He was actually from Miami-Dade County. And he somehow found out that there was a senior and that senior was sick. And that senior had a 5-acre parcel in Southwest Ranches free and clear. And what he did was he filed a fake corporation with Tallahassee. He then made the officer and director of the corporation the sick man. And he then made a fake ID saying he was that man. He then walked into a small business in the city of Sunrise, a mortgage company, and said, hey, you know what? I've fallen on some hard times, made some bad financial decisions, but I have this one thing, a 5-acre parcel free and clear. Can you please give me a $500,000 mortgage? And they said, sure, we will. And this is where they really should have realized something was fishy. The closing on a 5-acre parcel for a $500,000 mortgage took place at Burger King in Hialeah. So you have the bad guy trying to get the money. You have the mortgage company not doing their due diligence, but that's going to be a big deal for them because they are a small business company. And you also have the smartest person in the room, who is the notary. And the notary is looking at this thinking, this is very bizarre. So she asked for his thumbprint, which he gave. She then contacted her office. We contacted the Tonawanda Police Department because they police Southwest Ranches, and the U.S. Secret Service because they handle a lot of the identity theft cases in America. Fortunately, the man was arrested. Unfortunately, he was given the full $500,000, spent about $80,000. We recovered $420,000. One other example. Recently, we arrested 3 people. And there are more people that are going to be arrested. And these people were so smart. They came up with the scheme to use the court system to steal people's properties and senior properties. And what they would do is they would find a senior's property, or they'd find a bank property or somebody else's property, and they would file a lawsuit in circuit court, and they would say that senior no longer wants this property. That bank, that person no longer wants this property. And then the answer, return service for the answer, would go to the guy's buddy who was in a mobile home in Hillsborough County. And he would then file the answer and saying, oh yeah, I represent that senior. I represent that bank or that person. They no longer want this property. Please put in the name of this other guy or his company. And the judges were stamping the orders. They stole at least 20 properties that we found so far. We tend to find more every day. They were arrested. I believe they're going to have their day in court. But I think they're going to be found guilty, and I think they're going to go to jail for a long time. Those are just a few of the stories about how smart they are. But one other story I wanted to bring up that really is my guiding light for this. I may have talked about a property that was a 5-acre parcel in Southwest Ranches, and I talked about some other properties. But for the most part, the people that do this pick on our most vulnerable residents. They pick on seniors. They pick on low-income people. They pick on whoever they think they can best get away with it. And there was one gentleman that I love to talk about. Unfortunately, he is, I believe, since passed on. But he was 95 years old, a low-income gentleman, and he was confined to a wheelchair. And one day he's in his bedroom, and all of a sudden people are walking through his house. And he makes his way out there, and there was a realtor showing the house, trying to sell the house because somebody filed a fake deed on the property, and they hired that realtor to try to steal his property. And we had to work very, very hard to try to clear up his title. That is who they pick on, and that is why I'm so passionate about putting these people in jail. And I love to talk about this because I hope every single person out there signs up for our owner alert program. It's your first line of defense. And also I like to talk about it because I want everybody out there also that's thinking about doing this to know that if they do this in Broward County, they're not welcome here, and we're going to work hard to to show this to make them serve a long time in prison. But that's my long-winded answer. I'm so passionate about it, and I just appreciate the fact you allow me to talk about it.
Yes, and thank you. And definitely that Sun Sentinel article titled Defending the Vulnerable.
Yes, it is. It really is. I mean, it breaks my heart when you see poor people that are struggling, especially seniors who are being taken advantage of. And it happens all the time. And unfortunately, they're the ones that are the most likely victims. And, and I just find that to be doubly heinous when people do that. And what also people don't understand is when somebody's property is stolen, ultimately you're going to get it back. But you have to spend a lot of money in attorney's fees, go through a long court process to try to actually get the property back. And when a person who is indigent, that doesn't have any money, that's struggling, that's a senior, always already worrying about how they're going to eat or how they're going to buy their prescription drugs. When that type of person now has to go to court and have a long, drawn out, expensive process to get their property back, it's just wrong. And that is why I'm very passionate about this. And that's why I hope everybody signs up for our Owner Alert program, because it's really your first line of defense with this stuff.
Oh yeah, I absolutely did. When I found out about it, I went right on and I signed up, and I'm hopefully that doesn't ever happen to me or anyone I know, but it is a good system, and I'm glad you have that in place down there. So kudos to you all down there at the county, Broward County Property Appraiser's Office for being on the job,
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I forgot, and I forgot to mention it's free to the public.
Marty, I got some questions here. Marty, who is exempt? Is there anyone exempt from paying property taxes in the state of Florida? And I know it is, but can you tell the viewing audience who are exempt from paying taxes in Florida?
That is such a great question. Sure, such a great question. So first, if I could talk about individuals who could be exempt, and then I'd love to talk about institutions that can be exempt. But individuals, for example, if somebody is so the first thing that's important to mention is there are lots of taxing authorities. And some people can be exempt from some of the taxing authorities and not all, but there are a few people that are exempt from all. People that are exempt from all taxing authorities and from all property taxes, one would be 100% totally permanently disabled veterans. If you have an American Hero, 100% totally permanently disabled veteran, they are fully exempt from taxes for all taxing authorities. We have about 3,000 of those American Heroes that live in Broward County. Also, if somebody makes a certain amount of money and they're confined to a wheelchair and they're a quadriplegic, they can be exempt from property taxes, full taxes. But then there are also other people that are exempt from some property taxes, but not all. Let me give you an example. If somebody is a long-term low-income senior, so there are a number of senior exemptions. You have a traditional one that basically says if you're 65 years or older, you made right about $35,000 last year, that person is entitled to basically an additional homestead exemption. But if you're that person you're over 65, made under $35,000 a year, you've been in your home for 25 years or more, and the value of your home at the time of your application was under $250,000, then you're fully exempt from paying the county portion of the tax bill. And in most cities in Broward County, the city portion of the tax bill, not every city has adopted that. I try to get all of them too, but they're getting there. And there are also a number of others. I always tell everybody we have lots of exemptions under Florida law, and all of these exemptions can be stacked to reduce your tax bill. So if everybody out there listening, please go on our website at bcpa.net, or you'll see in a week when you get your trim notice, go through the exemptions that are on there, go on our website and see what exemptions you're getting. And if there's something you're not getting, please contact me by September 18th, and then we can make sure they're applied so they're in your November tax bill, which would actually makes sure that you're only paying your fair share of taxes and not too much. I hope that answered the question, Wayne.
Yes, it did. And when you were saying a lot of the cities, Marty, is not participating, I remember one of my church members came to me and they told me that Deerfield Beach was not participating in it because they were a senior and they were hoping to get that exemption. but they didn't get that exemption because they showed me where it was saying Deerfield Beach wasn't participating in that.
You know, it's I can't off the top of my head remember if Deerfield Beach has adopted it since. But right now there are 31 cities in Broward County, and we've had 17 cities at least that have adopted the long-term senior exemption. And I always try to encourage every city to do it. Here's what I tell them. At the end of the day, fortunately, there aren't a humongous amount of seniors that qualify for this because you really have to be over 65, made a certain amount of money, under 35,000 bucks, and been in your home for 25 years or more, and your home has to be under $250,000, which there's not a lot of that in Broward County. So not a lot of seniors qualify, but for the seniors so that means that the loss of revenue for the local government is very minimal. But for those seniors who struggle to make ends meet, that's a lot of money they can put back in their pocket and they can have a way better life. So I've been really working to try to encourage everybody to do it. And I do apologize when I can't remember whether or not Deerfield Beach has yet adopted it. But I do know this, though. If anybody in Deerfield Beach does qualify, they will be fully exempt from the county portion of the tax bill because when I was on the county commission, we actually at that time adopted it for the county. So that portion they would be exempt from.
Well, Marty, I have a question, and we've talked about this with co-workers on the job, and a lot of my co-workers are getting ready to retire, and they bought property, and I was told, I don't know how true it is, maybe you could clear it up, but if you buy property and you put trees or cattle on that property, do you have to pay taxes on that property or don't you?
That's a great question. The answer is,
I'm being told that it's considered like farmers, like farming land or agricultural land.
That is such a great question. So there is a very big exemption under Florida law called the agricultural classification. And when people have it, they save a lot of money in property taxes. I mean, they can save a significant amount. But here's the key. And this is what I always tell everybody. You can't just have trees on there and cows. You have to have an agricultural business. So you have to actually, so if you have your property, for the part of the property that is utilized for your business, and you have to prove to us it's a business, and there are certain requirements under Florida law, whether you're raising cattle or breeding horses or you have a nursery, there are all kinds of things you have to show us to qualify for that very, very valuable exemption. And it's one where in our office we take very seriously because, as you know, Broward County is a pretty built out place. There's not a lot of farmland left. And so you always, of course, want to encourage people to be farmers and to be in agriculture. But at the same time, you only want legitimate agricultural businesses to get it. So every single year, we review every agricultural property in Broward County. There's about 3,000 of them. There's some large ones, some mostly very, very small. And they have to show a lot of information to us to be able to keep their ag classification to qualify. It's a lot that goes into it, but it has to be a business.
So it is true, somewhat true, but there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of checks and balances behind it as well, correct?
Oh, yes. They have to show us tax returns, business plans. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Now, you don't have to make a profit, but you have to show us that you're attempting to make a profit because not every business is profitable, but it has to be a legitimate business. And so so I think many of the lawsuits against our office each year are for when we deny agricultural classifications. We say, no, that's not a business. And then, that can go to a special magistrate, then to a court. But we take that very seriously because at the end of the day, when somebody gets that exemption, that's a significant amount of money they're not paying in taxes, and while everybody else is paying their fair share. Now, if you have an agricultural business, you deserve to get that classification and not pay the taxes because you've earned it under the law. Conversely, if you try to fraud the system and get it without having a business just because you want to pay a little bit less, that's not fair to the other 2 million people of our county. So we take it very seriously. You have to prove a lot to get it.
Thank you.
And Marty, what is portability and how do people apply for portability?
That is such a fantastic question. I appreciate that, Wayne. I totally forgot to talk about that at the beginning. Portability is so important that affects all of us, and it gives people the opportunity to move from one home into another home and not be taxed out of that home. And here's the way it works. When somebody bought their home in Florida, they filed for homestead. And again, the most important thing that kicked into place was a 3% Save Our Homes assessment cap, which basically means that every single year, the value you're taxed on cannot go more than 3%. So over time, your market value gets high based on the sales, but your assessed value stays low because of that cap. You have all this value in between your market value and your assessed value you don't pay taxes on. If you now decide you want to buy another home of equal or greater value anywhere else in the state of Florida, you can move your homestead to that new home, and you can also take that difference between your market and your assessed value with you to your new home and not pay taxes on it. If you buy a home of lower value, you take a percentage of it, and you can still save many thousands of dollars a year in your property taxes. There are a few keys. The first is you can only have one homestead under Florida law. That's per family unit, which is basically a married couple. And so you have to move your homestead. The second is you have to do it within 3 tax years. And for our purpose, a tax year starts on January 1st. So right now it is August. So let's say you sold your home today. Your tax year started on January 1, 2023. That basically means you would have 2 years and about 2 or 3 or 4 months, I guess, to be able to move your new homestead. And you can move up to $500,000 of value. That's the maximum amount of value you can move over. But if you think about that, that's like not paying taxes on a $500,000 house. And let me give you an example. This is an extreme example, but it showed how the full $500,000 of value allowed somebody to move to another property. There was a couple that lived in the city of Weston, and they bought their home in what's called Weston Hills when Weston Hills was built years ago, so a few decades ago. They probably paid $250,000, $260,000 for their home at the time. Fast forward a number of decades, or they filed for homestead. Fast forward a number of decades, they had a couple kids. Their kids are now out of the house, and you had a married couple in this big house, and they were empty nesters, and all they wanted to do was move to a condo in downtown Fort Lauderdale, but they were afraid they couldn't afford the property taxes. So we looked at their property. The market value of their property was right about $900,000. But their assessed value was $400,000 because of that cap. There was $500,000 of value they weren't paying taxes on. What they did was they sold their Western property. They bought a condo in downtown Fort Lauderdale on Las Olas. They moved the full $500,000 of value over to that condo, which basically dropped it from 900 to about 400, which basically meant their assessed value in Fort Lauderdale was the same as it was in Weston. They were able to afford the property taxes, which were very, very similar. For me, in 2016, when I moved from my small little townhouse in Davie to a single family home in Plantation, I had about $70,000 of value that really helped me be able to afford my property taxes. Portability is a great thing. You can use it as many times as you want. And I just think it's fantastic because it makes sure you're not going to be stagnant in your home, and then you can actually move and afford the property that you're moving to. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, it did. I'm glad you
Definitely.
cleared that up, because I was one of the ones that didn't understand how that works. I'm not afraid to say it
yeah.
either, so that's why we have you on here to clear these things up, because I didn't know exactly how it worked.
Oh, thank you, Daryl and Wayne. I'll tell you, portability is awesome. I mean, it's and the great thing is you can use it anywhere in the state of Florida. Why anybody would want to leave Broward County, I don't know. But if they do, they can go take it anywhere else. But people use it all the time. And if you go, and also on our website, if anybody is going to go from a Broward property to another Broward property, they can click on portability. If you know your purchase price, you'll basically see what your property taxes are based on this year's tax rates. With portability and without portability. It's really a great tool. And when somebody moves to another county or they come to Broward County, we work with the property appraiser's office of that county to make sure that portability and everything is moved over.
Okay. And Marty, what triggers a property reassessment in Florida?
That's a great question. There are a number of different things that can trigger a property reassessment. So the first is the purchase of the property. Now, here's what you have to understand. You have portability, these different things, but if you buy a property, initially, the purchase price. So here's a good example. I'll try to explain it better this way, and I do apologize. So if somebody's lived in their property for a long time, let's take that couple in Weston I spoke about. So their assessed value was $400,000. Their market value was about $900,000. When they left that property, that actually reset it up to $900,000. That would be what their new taxes would be. Now, the other thing is whoever's buying their property, we're usually going to use the purchase price as their new property. It's going to be reassessed to that. If it's an arm's length transaction, basically what a willing buyer would pay a willing seller. And in that situation, I believe the property was purchased for $1 million. So that would be the new value that people were using. And there are other things you can apply. Other things can as well. If you change your deed in a way that's, for example, not adding a spouse, if you are changing your deed from joint tenants with right of survivorship to tenancy in common, if you have property that's not homesteaded property, and that property you have a 10% cap, that basically means that all property, the value of tax like can't go more than 10%. Except for the school board portion of the tax bill. And let's say you own that property and now you want to put it into an LLC for liability purposes, that would reset it to market value. Churches or 501c3s, if they sell their property to for-profits, that gets reset to market value. So what I always tell everybody too is this. Also on our website, we have a tax estimator. So you can, there's portability and there's a tax estimator. And if somebody's thinking about buying a property in Broward County, it is so very important that they go on that tax estimator because it'll really show what their property taxes are going to be. And let me tell you where it can be very, very difficult. It's usually very, very difficult for younger people, first-time home buyers, people that don't have portability, people that basically are buying their first property. And so what happens the first year they buy a property, they pay the taxes of the previous owner. So whatever the property taxes were going to be of the previous owner, that's the tax bill in November. But then come January of the next year, under the law, that's when we as the property appraiser's office and under Florida law determine that's really your first year that you own that property for tax purposes. And so what happens on January 1st, we reset it to market value based on the purchase price. If it's an arm's length transaction, usually that means your taxes go from here to here. And I usually will get phone calls. Actually, next week, I'm going to get phone calls from first-time home buyers who are going to say, Marty, I got your trim notice. I don't understand why my property taxes tripled or quadrupled. And it's because they didn't know when they bought it. They thought they were going to be what the previous owner was. So please, everybody out there that's listening, if you're going to buy a new property, if your son or daughter is going to buy a property, if you know somebody is, go on our website at bcpa.net, use our tax estimator, because if you know the purchase price, you can know what the property taxes are going to be the year after it reassesses. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And Marty, I heard you mention about the warranty deed, and that was coming up for me. Like some of the people who, like me, let's say I bought my home 30 years ago, and they give you your warranty deed and everything. And over the years, a lot of people, including me, misplaced their warranty deed, and you may need it for whatever reason somewhere down the line. And how, if you lose your warranty deed, how can they come down to the property appraiser's office and get a new copy of their warranty deed? And can they do it online?
Yes, you can do it online.
Yes, that is such a great question. And actually, thank you so much for asking that. And I appreciate this. You can do it online. If you go to our website at bcpa.net, if you click on your property right down below, you'll see you can just actually click on a link that'll bring your property right up. And it'll bring your deed right up, the most recent deed to the property that's been recorded. You can get that. You can request a certified copy of it. But you know what's so important, and I'm so glad you brought that up. I don't know if you've ever gotten in the mail, and I have, and it kind of makes me angry every time I get it. You have companies that'll actually send you a letter saying, hey, you need a copy of your deed, send us $100, we'll get it for you. And I always get that letter, and it drives me crazy. It's something that is lawful but awful, because people can actually go and get it for free with us, or can just go downtown or call our office and we'll get it for you. And so I always tell everybody, please disregard that. Those are really just companies trying to rip people off. They're not doing anything illegal. But like I said, that's one of those things that's lawful but awful. But people can just go on our website, bcpa.net, look at their property, and they can find their deed right there.
Right. And I'm glad you cleared that up, because I had that problem when my air conditioning unit went out, and I filed a claim to have my unit repaired because it was under warranty. Most of these AC companies, they give you a 10-year warranty on your AC unit. But for some reason, they didn't want to replace my AC unit, and they were saying, well, it's showing that we did a search and it looks like you don't own the home anymore, because there's a lady around the corner from me that has the same address but a different name. It was showing like, that I sold my property. I was like, no, I still own the property, and I had to they asked me for a copy of my warranty deed, and for the life of me, I couldn't find it, and I was scrambling, and I was like, oh no, how am I going to get this to them? And I'm burning up here in the house. And luckily I did find it. But again, that makes it easier for the viewers out there who has lost their warranty deed. Just go right online and request the new one, and they'll get it to you for free.
You know what, and anybody, and thank you for bringing that up too. I always love to tell everybody this: the 2 million people of Broward County have allowed me to serve them. And being an elected official, and we have all kinds of access to everybody's property and so much information. And we really just want to be helpful to anybody that needs help. So if anybody out there on any issue with regard to their property has any issue, whether it's getting a copy of their deed, or if they want to change their deed, or if they want to add somebody to their deed, or if they're concerned about somebody trying to steal their property, if they need exemption, whatever it is, use us as a resource. We are happy to talk to everybody, all the time. I actually email people 24/7. If anybody wants to email me, it's just Marty Kiar at bcpa.net, MartyKiar at bcpa.net. All day, every day, I answer my emails. I just constantly answer my phone. And we just want to give as much information to the public as possible so that their lives can be made a little bit easier, because that's what we should do as public servants. So thank you for what you said. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I have two more questions, and then if Daryl don't have anything else, we can let you go, Marty. Can you explain Save Our Homes? Because
yes,
I know we get that a lot, and a lot of people don't know what that means. Just explain Save Our Homes to us.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, that is such a great question. Save Our Homes is by far the most important thing that keeps us all in our homes. And here's what it is. So it relates to the homestead exemption, and it's that cap we spoke about. So when somebody files for a homestead exemption, the value they're taxed on cannot go more than a maximum of 3%, or the consumer price index, whichever is lower. Usually it's even much lower than 3%. So over time, again, your market value gets very high, your assessed value stays low. You have all this value in between you don't pay tax on. That's your Save Our Homes value. It's all that value you've accumulated that you don't pay taxes on. And that's also the value you can transfer to another home through portability. It is really fantastic. And it really, really helps people. Like I know Daryl said he's been in his home for 30 years. Wayne, I'm not sure how long you've been in your home for, but if you look at your property, I know you both are homesteaded, you will see your market value is way higher than your assessed value. And there's a lot of tax you don't pay a lot of value you don't pay taxes on. That's your Save Our Homes value. It is fantastic. I'm so glad the people of Florida put that in the Constitution a few decades ago, because it has really helped people tremendously. And it really helps people now, especially because property values are skyrocketing. I mean, people are coming from all over the country, and they are paying top dollar for properties in Broward County. And if there was no Save Our Homes, then everybody's assessed value would skyrocket with the market value based on those other sales, but they can't because of that cap. And that's why the Save Our Homes value is so important for the people of our communities.
And I heard you talk about the assessed value and the market value. That was my next question to ask you. What is the difference between assessed value and market value in Florida?
Sure. So there are actually three values that we use when it comes to the value of your property. You have the market value, and the market value is really what is a willing buyer going to pay a willing seller. So whatever that property is worth, that's the market value, basically what you can sell the house for. Then you have your assessed value, and that is the value that is not your taxable value, but that's the value that technically is considered where the top of the line where you'll be paying your taxes on. So let's say, for example, the market value of a home is, let's go back to 900,000, it's a high number, but 900,000. And then let's say your assessed value is 400,000 because of that cap. That's where your value starts. Your taxable value cannot go up more than that. Then you have your taxable value. That's when we apply your homestead exemption. So now we'll take off another 50,000. Let's say you're a senior, another 25,000 or 50,000, and you get down finally to a value that you pay tax on your taxable value. So those are the three. You have your market value, what a willing buyer would pay a willing seller. The assessed value, which basically means that you can't pay taxes on anything more than that. That's your cap. That's where it stops. And then you have your taxable value up to all your other exemptions are paid. Then that's where you you pay your taxes on. I hope that explained it.
Okay, and what's next for Marty Kiar? Yes, it did.
Oh God.
What's next for Marty Kiar after in the future?
Thank you so much. Well, I have to tell you, I love this job so much. As I said before, I feel that this is the best elected job on the face of the earth because you get to do constituent services all day, every day. And I've been blessed to be able to serve in a number of capacities. As I said before, I served in the Florida House of Representatives, got to serve in the county commission, got to be the mayor of the county, and now property appraiser. And this job to me is just so unique because it's the only one out of all those jobs, I think out of all elected jobs, where your job is basically to do constituent services all day and you get to help people. And to me, it just feels so good and is so gratifying that, as I said before, when I go home, I put my head on my pillow, I feel like I did something good that day. And so I would be honored to stay in this job as long as the people of Broward County allow me to do it. I'll definitely be back on the ballot in 2024. We run, all the constitutional officers run every 4 years. We're on the presidential election ballot, which actually is kind of cool because if you think about this, Broward County has more people than 13 states. It is humongous. We have more voters than many states. And when you get to be on a ballot during the presidential election, when more than 1.2 million people are coming out to vote, it feels so good. And when you see that people think enough of you to give you their vote, which I think is one of the most precious things we have as Americans, it just feels amazing. But I would love, truthfully, to stay in this job as long as the people of our community allow me to do it. I just feel very honored to do it. That's my long-winded answer. I'm very passionate about property appraiser stuff. So thank you, Wayne, and thank you, Daryl.
Well, you are absolutely doing a marvelous job.
Yes, you
we
are.
hope that you would
Thank you.
continue to doing the good work that you've been doing for so long for the people here in Broward County. Hopefully the governor don't try and remove you for whatever reason. He does some crazy things here in Florida. So
Yes.
keep on doing the good
Yes.
job that you're doing. We definitely will vote for you when it's time.
Thank you.
Time comes again. And tell our viewers how they could reach you. But give them your email address or your phone number. What's the best way to reach you?
Sure. I will. And before I do that, I just want to thank you, Daryl, and Wayne for what you do. As I said before, there are so many things that government can do to help people. And especially in our job, when you have a lot of opportunities to do that, but sometimes it's very difficult to reach everybody. And when really good people like yourselves invite me to come on just to talk about how our office can help the community, it helps us help that many more people I couldn't reach on my own. So thank you all so much for taking the time to do this and for really getting the word out to our awesome Broward community. I think it is fantastic. And if anybody in Broward County would like to reach out to me so we can help them on anything, my email address, that's the easiest way to get to me because all day, every day, like I said, I'm answering emails. It's just my name, Marty Kiar, MartyKiar @bcpa.net. They can also call me at 954-357-6904. And, I do get letters too. I have actually, it's kind of fun every once in a while. I think I got a letter from a 105-year-old senior recently that we helped file for homestead. It was a handwritten letter and it was absolutely wonderful. But I'm very easy to find. And also, forgot to mention this. Our office, I know it's not easy for people to get to downtown Fort Lauderdale on a weekday from basically 8 to 6. That's hard. People are working. So we actually have a great organization in our office called our Mobile Exemption and Education Team. It's basically our outreach team where we take our office to the public. We go to about 1,000 events a year. And our staff comes, they sit down with people, they open up their computers and they sign them up for exemptions, owner alert, they help them with their property. And if anybody goes on our website at bcpa.net, they just click on events calendar. You can see exactly where we're going to be. And that's an easy way to get to us as well. People can also schedule a virtual visit by just going to bcpa.net. There are lots of ways to reach us. And I hope everybody does because we really just want to be able to provide as much help to the public as we can. Thank you so much for asking me. And thank you both so much again for helping me on, having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Thank you
for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come talk to us. You're always welcome to come on this podcast. So we've been talking to Broward County property appraiser, Mr. Marty Kiar. Thank you so much for providing our viewers and us with all of that valuable information. So don't be a stranger. You're welcome to come on this podcast anytime you get ready. And
you see us in the street, come up and holler at us.
Introduce yourself in person.
Absolutely.
We've never met you in person, but we'd like to meet you.
I met you. I met
yes,
Marty.
Absolutely. We did. And also want to thank you so much, Wayne, for taking the time to talk to me at the event that the commissioner was having. Recently, oh gosh, he's such a great guy. The Deerfield Beach commissioner was having a really nice town hall. He's actually a fantastic person. Yes, Commissioner Price. I was drawing a blank. He is such a fantastic. He's a former firefighter, awesome guy. I have to tell you, there are 31 cities in Broward County, and Ben is one of the nicest, most dedicated public servants I know. I can definitely say to everybody in Deerfield Beach, they are blessed to have Ben Preston representing them. He is so easy to work with, and he always seems to have the best interest of the community at heart. I'm a big fan of Ben, and I just thought it was so nice that he had me there, and it was really, really so nice of you, Wayne, just to take the time to invite me onto the podcast. And Daryl and Wayne, I appreciate you both so much. Thank you so much. And I would love to come back on anytime you all will have me. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. And once again, we've been talking to Broward County Property Appraiser, Mr. Marty Kiar. And we want to thank you for stopping by this evening and just for providing us with all of this good information. Thank you, sir. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful. Oh, you too.
God bless.
Thanks, Daryl and Wayne. Have a great evening. God bless you all too. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, absolutely welcome.